A question I received quite a lot is, hey, PDWinnall, what are your favourite and least favourite Pokemon within the Pokemon universe? And because I'm a total pessimist, today I'm going to be showcasing my top 10 least favourite Pokemon, or as I'm going to affectionately refer to them as, the 10 worst Pokemon to ever exist. I think it's fairly obvious that this list is going to be totally 100% based on my personal opinion. If I insult one of your favourite Pokemon and I offend you, before you leave a comment telling me to get a haircut or telling me that I have a really annoying voice, just remember this is purely opinion based. This is not serious. It's just a joke. Leave me a comment telling me what Pokemon you consider to be the worst Pokemon to ever exist. I'd be really interested to hear what Pokemon you hate. And 5 likes would be really appreciated for my next video to be uploaded on Thursday. So with all that out of the way and having already warned you, let's jump straight into this list, shall we? Coming in first on this list, it should be noted this list isn't in any specific order. I don't think I could really order this list if I'm being honest. It's Lumineon and Finneon, I guess. It's funny because I can't even remember Lumineon's base evolution's name. That's how forgettable these Pokemon are to me. These two Pokemon are literally the most forgettable, least memorable Pokemon in the entire Pokemon universe, and that's why they make it onto this list. It's not even that I dislike these Pokemon, it's just I can't even remember they exist half the time. I can't remember where you catch them in any of the games. They're just another two water-type Pokemon, a type that already has a plethora of really memorable Pokemon, and there's just nothing that stands out about these Pokemon. It's not that they're horrific Pokemon, I just don't see a reason for them to exist. And the fact that they're so forgettable is why they make it onto this list. Number 2 on this list is actually a legendary Pokemon, Regigigas. The reason I dislike Regigigas isn't because of its lore, it isn't because of its design. I actually think the lore behind Regigigas is pretty freaking awesome. The reason I dislike Regigigas is despite its powerful badass design, it is literally the most garbage Pokemon you could use in battles because of its ability. Try to use this Pokemon in single battles, it's not gonna work. Its slow start ability is the worst ability a Pokemon can have. Why did they give it slow start? You literally aren't able to use it in battle. Why? Well, when Pokemon is literally based around battling. I like Regigigas' design, I like its lore, but in battle it is complete garbage to use, and that's why it makes it onto this list. Speaking of garbage Pokemon, no, not Garbodor, not Trubbish. Actually, those Pokemon get way too much hate. The Pokemon I'm going to put as number 3 on this list is Grimer. Gen 1ers are going to just absolutely despise my existence for saying this, but if you guys are going to hate on Trubbish and Garbodor for being trash Pokemon, literal Pokemon that are based on garbage, you guys have to hate on Grimer and Muk as well. And just the fact that Garbodor and Trubbish get so much hate for being based on garbage by Gen 1ers makes me want to root for the little guy and say, hey, wait a second, in Gen 1 there was a Pokemon that was literally based on a pile of sludge. I don't even dislike Grimer all that much, I'm just rooting for the little guy. But you have to admit that Grimer is a pretty bad Pokemon, at least design wise. Number 4 on this list is Alamamola. When we all first saw its design way back in 2010 or whatever it was, we all thought, great, love Disc, it's getting an evolution. It really deserves it. It's a Pokemon that's unusable in battle because its stats are so poor. Like seriously, look at these two Pokemon. They're identical. No, for whatever reason, they completely scrapped any possible evolution for Luvdisc and made Alamamola a Pokemon whose existence is literally only justified by the fact that its name is a palindrome. The only good thing about Alamamola is its name. It is so fun to say. Other than that, why does it exist? At least Luvdisc has some kind of use in-game. You can farm heart scales from it. It has a pretty shiny form. Alamamola is just freaking ugly, and I don't like it. Number 5, once again, Gen 1ers are gonna get very frustrated at me for this one. Voltorb. I don't even dislike Voltorb all that much, but you have to admit, it is literally one of the worst Pokemon. People get on Generation 5, Generation 6 for, I don't know, the designs in them generations being lackluster, being poor, whatever you want to call it. But Generation 1 had Pokemon literally based on magnets and balls and sludge and this thing. Voltorb is literally a Pokeball with eyes. A toddler could probably draw a better looking Pokemon. And the only reason certain people like it is because it was in the first generation. Literally, just imagine if Voltorb was introduced in Generation 6, think of the outrage. People attacked a Keyring Pokemon. That thing's pretty cool. Look at Voltorb. Imagine the outrage if it was introduced 20 years later. I like Voltorb. It's just one of the worst Pokemon to exist. Now, I complain about Voltorb's design, but when I first saw this Pokemon's design 2 years ago, I was in utter shock. Bionicle. Maybe it's because I don't know too much about Bionicle, in all honesty. I don't really know what its base stuff. I really like its evolution. I love using its evolution in battle. But Bionicle might be the worst designed Pokemon in all of existence. It is just ugly. You know, all these Pokemon bar Lumineon at the very beginning of this video actually have some kind of redeeming quality in the fact that at least I remember them. At least I remember the fact that they exist. Meractus, on the other hand, seriously, why is this thing a thing? The only time I remember it exists is when I visit the route it's obtainable in Pokemon Black, White, Black 2 and White 2. Its stats are very mediocre. I don't know a single person who's ever used it in a playthrough of the Generation 5 games. It's not the most hideous thing in the world, but it's just really forgettable. We already have 2 pretty awesome cactus Pokemon. And I know that Game Freak wanted to implement some kind of cactus Pokemon into the Desert Resort in Pokemon Black and White, and they couldn't use Cacnea or Cacturne because those Pokemon weren't within Generation 5, but they could have made the cactus Pokemon a little bit more, you know, memorable. Another pretty forgettable Pokemon, and the fact that they're forgettable means it makes its way onto the list, is Qwilfish. Qwilfish I actually feel kind of bad for because I really like its design. I like what it's based off. Its design just makes me remember that one episode of The Simpsons where Homer, you know, nearly died eating a poisonous fish. I actually quite like Qwilfish, but for the same reasons as Meractus, it's a Pokemon with very lackluster stats. There's literally no reason for you to use it, and the fact that you can only catch it on one route after the fisherman on that route calls you at specific times in the week. All of this makes Qwilfish a pretty forgettable Pokemon. And I like pretty much every single Generation 2 Pokemon. I like every single Johto Pokemon. Qwilfish finding its way onto this list kind of makes me a little bit sad, but it just kind of has to. A Pokemon I don't feel bad about putting onto this list though is Dedenne. It is literally a carbon copy of what you'd get if you mix Pikachu and Raichu, and I just don't like the fact that it exists. Sure, I totally get that Game Freak needed a cutesy looking Pokemon for this generation of Pokemon trainers, and I know they needed to fill the quota of Fairy-type Pokemon in the Kalos region, the first time Fairy-type Pokemon have been in Pokemon games, but I just don't care. At least have some kind of original thought in your body. Marvel was a cool Pikachu clone. Minun and Plusle, sure, they look like Pikachu, but I'll give them a pass. They're a pretty cool concept, positive and negative. Pachirisu is pushing it a little bit, but it's not a rat, it's a squirrel, fine. But Dedenne? No. That's where this stops. Game Freak, stop it. And last but most certainly not least on this list is Castform. So, in Generation 3, Game Freak thought, hey, we need a badass looking Pokemon to really showcase the benefits of using weather to your advantage on your team. And they wanted a Pokemon that could change form depending on what weather there was in battle. And what did they create? Freaking Castform. A Pokemon that literally looks like it was based off Peter Griffin's chin. It looks like a pair of balls. They could have made a badass Pokemon to really showcase weather in Generation 3. They didn't do that. If I've insulted your favourite Pokemon throughout the course of this video and I've offended you, I'm not even sorry. I've got so angry while recording this video. I've remembered why I dislike these Pokemon so much. But if I didn't offend you, I really hope you've enjoyed this video. Leave me a list in the comments below telling me what Pokemon you considered to be the worst Pokemon in existence. And 500 likes would be really appreciated on this video for another video to be uploaded on Thursday. Feel free to subscribe so you don't miss any more of my future Pokemon videos, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace out.